amendment would require that all financial companies that meet three specific too-big-to-fail criteria be placed on the orderly liquidation authority procedure set up under Section 202 of the base text. The criteria that would trigger automatic determination for the Secretary to appoint the FDIC receiver for a national company include if the government owned at least 1 million shares of the company for more than 1 year, the company has received at least $50 billion in taxpayer funds, and number three, if the company has had at least $1 trillion of outstanding mortgage-backed securities in the market as of October 3rd, 2008. Currently, I'm aware of only 2 companies that satisfy all 3 criteria and would automatically be placed on Section 202's orderly liquidation authority, and those 2 companies are the government-sponsored enterprises of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Again, I don't necessarily believe in the too-big-to-fail authority and definition that has been set up or the resolution authority, but if it is going to be set up, are there any greater poster children of too big to fail than Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? I would also point out these were not born of a competitive marketplace, but in many respects born in a government laboratory, who were allowed to go out, exploit their implicit government guarantee, their duopoly status, and we know the rest is history. We've seen the financial meltdown. We've debated earlier in the week. We'll debate next week what the root cause of the financial crisis was. Ultimately, many of us believe it was federal policies that strong-armed, that incented, that cajoled financial institutions into essentially loaning money to people to buy homes that they couldn't afford to keep. And at the epicenter of this was Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. What we have today, though, and under the earlier amendment that the chairman accepted, there would be at least the ability for the FDIC to put them into liquidation authority. This would essentially mandate that. Otherwise, status quo today is, under current law, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac could stay in a perpetual conservatorship in perpetuity. Many of us do not believe that is good public policy. We're looking at almost already 147 billion reasons why we should not have a conservatorship in perpetuity, and that is the amount of money that taxpayers have already had to pay. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the financial markets regulatory bill has left Fannie and Freddie out from the ambit. And this makes no sense to me. But what we do know, and this has been entered into the record before, and we've heard Charles Haldeman, Freddie Mac's chief executive officer, said, quote, "We're making decisions on loan modifications and other issues without being guided solely by profitability that no purely private bank ever could." How is the taxpayer ever going to recoup their $147 billion and counting if now what we essentially have is institutions that are an arm of a failed government housing policy, in this case, a failed foreclosure mitigation plan? The former head of Freddie Mac, Daniel Mudd, has said the government is, quote, "running Fannie and Freddie as an instrument of national economic policy and not as a business." Ultimately, there is the debate. Should we have Fannie and Freddie exist with the current taxpayer hemorrhage, ultimately with the potential to serve in that area in perpetuity, or should they go through this orderly liquidation authority, which I would add would not happen overnight, but under Section 202, the appointment of the FDIC as a receiver can last up to 5 years, 3 years initial receivership with the possibility of 2 one-year extensions. I might also remind those who serve on the conference, there are many nations in the world who frankly had less housing turmoil and a greater rate of home ownership who do not have government-sponsored enterprises. They are not necessary. We know what havoc they have wreaked. I believe I just simply cannot understand why they would not come within the ambit of this bill. We have to stop the hemorrhage. We have to move to competitive markets, and this bill would achieve that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.